Okay, so we are discussing the shear failure of single eye end, and then these are the two places from where the failure will take place. And since we find it difficult to understand how much this area will be, what we do is we try to take this area for the same purpose. Okay, but the thing is this area is less than what is actual here. But that is fine for us because we are taking the area which is less than actual, means we are trying to find out the induced stress which is going to be more than the actual. So even if the stress is more and if still it is less than the design, that means the actual will be definitely less. So it will be safe to assume area which is less than the actual area. So we are trying to find out how much is this area. So how much this area will be? It will be d2 minus d1, which is this and this both sides. Out of these both sides, one will take here and one will take here. So that's why d2 minus d1 becomes sufficient. So I'll write here d2 minus d1, that is one side, and the other side is t. So that becomes the resisting area for the single eye end. When it will fail in shear, I'll repeat, it will fail in shear from here, but we are taking this area just for the sake of simplicity, which will be less than the actual area, which will be still the safer way. So this answer, if it is less or equal to the shear design stress, then this is safe. That means it will not fail by this way. Okay, now the next way of failure, that is the bearing failure. So bearing failure of single eye end. Now what does this mean? Bearing failure of single eye end. Now in this single eye end there is a pin, so it is something like this. There is a single eye end and there is a pin, and at this place there is going to be some such kind of action which is going to take place during the load. So when the load is there, there is also going to be rubbing action. So when this pin is in contact with the surface here, at this place there is a stress which is because of this contact and rubbing both. So that stress we say that it is called as the bearing stress. So bearing stress is going to be induced here, and that bearing stress we want to check whether it is less than the design stress or not. So we write the, first we'll maybe draw the sketch here. So the sketch could be something like this. And then the resisting area will be, since it is pulling this way, this will be the resisting area. On one side it will be in contact. Now this is D2, this is D1, and it has got a thickness T. So right here, if bearing induced is equal to load upon, now how much is this area? Now last time we have seen something called as a projected area. So that projected area, if you think over how it is made up of, then that is, maybe we can show it this way. So this is how this part is. I am just trying to show you the inside area which is of our interest. So this resisting area what is shown here is actually this area, which is a curved area like this. So this curved area we are going to take as a area, but then last time we saw we are going to take the projected area. This curvature area is pi d by 2, because this side is pi d by, this curvature is pi d by 2 into the thickness, that is this full area, pi d by 2 into this. This is the area of the curvature. But we are taking what happens when it is curved, whatever is the front view of this curved area, that is the projected area, that area we are taking, which is diameter into thickness. So this area is, for us it is just a diameter into thickness. So what we are going to take is this part, which is one side is diameter, the other side is thickness. Diameter is d1. Okay, so we write here projected area is d1 into t. And again, this should be less than the design bearing stress. If it is less, then it is safe. So it will not fail in bearing at this place. Okay, so we have checked, first we started with the design of the diameter of the rod. With this diameter we have found out all the dimensions by empirical relations, and then we have checked the remaining stresses by way of the checking equation. So same design equation we are used with the dimensions and load both written, and we found out the stress, called those stresses as induced stresses, and those induced stresses we checked whether they are less than the design stresses or not. That way we have checked all the dimensions which we are ready-made found out by the empirical, and now we can say that they are same because we have checked them for different types of stresses. So now after this we will go to the design checking of the double iron. So next is design of double iron. So there again, for this double iron we will check it for the tensile failure. So tensile failure of double iron. Now this double iron, if you draw, it will look something like this. And it will fail from this place and this place, which we don't want to happen. So we'll check the dimensions which are already obtained, D2 and D1, and then it has got a thickness here T1. So right here F tensile induced is equal to load upon area. Now how much is this area? It will be D2 minus D1 into T1 into 2, because it is twice here as well as here. D2 minus D1 into T1 into 2, and this is the stress induced which is less than design, then it is safe. So after you check, if it is less, it is safe. Now let's go to the next, that is the shear failure of double I end. Shear failure of the same end, double iron. Now what will happen is, the sketch comes something like this. And then the resisting area is here, and it is twice because it has got one side like this and then one more fork end like this. So twice it is, and same like projected area, this is diameter D1, thickness is T1. So right here F shear induced. Now we are talking about projected area, not projected area, in fact it is this one. Here it is. So just like last time what we had done for single iron, this will come as load upon area. Now we have decided to take this area, so that comes as D2 minus D1, so 2 times, so 1 is here, 1 is here, into T1, and this time into 2 will come. This into 2 will come because it is here as well as here. So find it out and see whether it is less than the design shear stress, then only it will be safe. If it is less. So that is the shear failure, checking of shear failure of the double iron. Now the third is bearing failure of double iron. Bearing failure of double I end. So the sketch comes like this. Okay, so this is D1, this is T1, this is T1. So what we do is now we take the projected area of this curvature at two places, once here and once here. So that comes as a bearing induced is equal to load upon area. Now area is D1 into T1 taken two times. D1 is this, T1 is this, and taken two times. So this is the bearing induced stress, which should be less than the bearing design stress to make it safe. So we have checked the bearing failure of the double eye end also. So now at this stage you will see that we have completed the work of designing the single eye end also and now the double eye end also. You will find why we have not designed this part, why we have not checked this part. Now you will see that this size is a square. First of all, this size is a square size, and this square size is already larger than this. So the area is more than what is present here. This is already safe, and this is even more, so this will be definitely safe. Therefore, we have not checked this part for the tensile. This portion we have not checked for the tensile stress. Okay. Incidentally, what is this place? Now, if you think of a section, then the section taken here, and section taken here. What will be the different sections here? Here it is a circular section, here it is a square section, and at this place, what is the section? Think about what is the section over here. Now, the way it is shown here, it looks like a hexagon, like a bolt head. But then it is three sides are here. Here also there are three sides. So when three sides there are both when the three sides are there seen in both views, that means the cross section here is going to be octagonal and not hexagonal. If you remember, for bolt, hexagonal bolt, at one view there are three sides, in the other view there are two sides for a hexagonal bolt. Now here 3 and 3 means it is octagonal shape. Now why they make here octagonal shape? The reason is there is something called as a stress concentration, which we are going to see afterwards. What is the meaning of stress concentration? That is applicable here. So if the size is square here and then it changes to circle, then there is a sudden change in cross section. So if I draw, maybe I will draw here. So it could be, suppose it is square till the end and then there is a circle, cylindrical shape. It will look like this. Now what will happen? The diameter, the cross section is suddenly changing from square to cylinder, and because of sudden change there will be crack formation that will take place because of stress concentration, which we don't want to happen. So the diameter, the cross section should be gradually reduced. So for that purpose, these edges, they are hammered into, by forging they are hammered and they are given some such shape here as well as here. That means the shape is square, then it is octagonal, and then it is circle. So from 4 sides to 8 sides, 8 sides to infinite sides. So there is a gradual change in the cross section. So now the stress concentration doesn't take place and the crack formation also will not take place. That's why this end is modified into octagonal shape, which is done by hammering these edges by way of forging action, and that is why this joint is made strong enough. Okay, so that is some more information about the single eye end, double eye end, their ends here, how they are modified, and we have done the design part of both of them. We have checked the given sizes. Now the next part is whatever remaining is pin and the collar and the lock pin. So the design of, next is design of pin. This pin it is. Now if you see this pin like this, then it is going to fail by shear at these two places. So that is a shear failure of pin. So we'll say that shear failure of pin. The sketch could come something like this. will fail from here and here, and this is the diameter d1. So the equation goes like this: F shear induced is equal to load upon this area pi d1 square by 4, and it is taken 2 times. One area here, this area here, both these areas are together resisting the shear stress, and then this should be less than the given design stress to make it safe. So we have checked the pin for shear failure. Any other thing, any other way this shear the pin will fail, you will see that the pin is again in contact with the fork end and the eye end. So just like we have checked the fork end and eye end here for bearing stress, same thing, the bearing stress will also develop on the pin. It will develop on the surface of the single and double eye end. Same way it will be also there. That means the bearing stress will also be induced on the surface of the pin. But then the thing is, if the material for the pin and the material for the single and double eye end, if it is same, then the values will be same, because the stress, the formula what you are going to use is same, so it will be still the same. But in case if the data says that the stress for the pin is different than the stress for the single and double eye end, then you have to do the checking again. So what we will do is, we will not do it now, but I will just give you here as a statement saying that I will just write here bearing failure of pin across single eye end. Now this is to be checked only if pin material is different from eye ends. So if the pin material is different from the eye material, then only this is to be done. Otherwise this checking is not required, because the values will be still safe. Okay. Okay, so we saw single eye and double eye, and now pin also we saw. Now the remaining parts are collar and lock pin. Collar and lock pin. Now, so what do we do with this? So let me just write design of collar and see whether something is required here. Design of this collar. Now first try to find out what are the stresses acting on collar, just like for the other things. So there is a collar. Now what does the collar do? You put this pin like this, and suppose this collar is not there and pin is not there, then what will happen? If this particular joint has got some vibrations, or if it turns upside down, then this pin will fall down. So that we don't want to happen. We want the pin to remain in position. So by some method we have to lock the pin. So that locking is done by putting one collar like this, so that there is sufficient surface in contact, and then there is a common hole through the collar as well as through the main pin, and through that there is a lock pin. This is a pin which is called a lock pin, or also it is called a split pin. So the split pin is passed like this, and once it goes here, its ends are flared so that it will not come out. So once this is done, the collar is in position, the lock pin is in position, and because of that this main pin also will be in position, it will not come out. Now in this condition, just try to think whether any stresses are acting on this collar or not. And if the stresses are acting, we have to find out what are the stresses and which are the areas, which is the resisting area which is resisting this particular stress. Now you will find that when this load is applied, you are applying this load, even if this collar is not there, even if this lock pin is not there, nothing will happen. The whole joint will function even if collar doesn't exist or the lock pin doesn't exist. It is only meant for preventing the removal of this main pin. So pin should not come out. That is the only objective of this collar and lock pin. That means this collar is not playing any role in defending or in resisting the load. So this load and this collar has nothing to do. That means this collar is not bearing any load. There is no load coming on this collar. This load is not acting on the collar. This load is also not acting on the split pin. Therefore, we need not design this collar. Okay, nothing to be done. Whatever values you have obtained by the empirical relations T2 and some D3 something, D3 it is. So diameter of the head of the pin is same as diameter of the collar. Just I have not written. It is same. So this also is D3. Diameter of the collar also is D3, but then it is not taking part in taking this sharing this load. So there is no requirement of any stress checking, and the dimensions which you obtain by empirical relations, they are straight away to be accepted. Now what is the second part? So I'll just write here dimensions obtained by empirical equations are acceptable since no stresses are acting on collar. Since no stresses are acting on collar, I'll write here even split pin also and split pin. Same thing is applicable for this split pin also. Both split pin and collar, they are not taking part in sharing this load. So no need of doing any checking. Whatever dimensions you got by the empirical, they are good enough. Okay. Now just some more information about this split pin. How is this split pin working? How it is made up of? Just I'll write few things about split pin just for your information. Have you seen split pin? You must have seen this split pin sometimes. It looks like this. These are the split pin looks like before it is assembled. So this end is put in this hole, and once it comes out from the other side, that time the two ends they are opened. So when you open these ends they flare like this. Like this they flare. You have to flare